What's up, and welcome to an all-new episode of QB Room. He's Jason Forcier, and I'm Jake Santos. We have a great show for you tonight, including, of course, a breakdown of the latest CFP rankings. And wow, the Big 12, huh? Getting a lot of love, Jason. Plus, we have some new Heisman contenders, and I'll recap my trip to Boulder, which might be one of the best college towns in all of America. An all-new episode of QB Room starts right now.
QB Room is sponsored by Auto Wiper Blades. Don't wait until your visibility is compromised before upgrading your wiper blades. Stay safe on the road with crystal clear vision throughout the year. Auto Wiper Blades are designed to conquer all weather conditions, ensuring your safety no matter the forecast. Plus, a swift, hassle-free installation process makes wiper blade maintenance a breeze. Experience the difference today with Auto Wiper Blades and enjoy a 100-day test drive of superior visibility. Don't miss out. Visit autoblades.com and start your journey to a safer, clearer drive now. Happy birthday, Jake.
Yeah, the big 28 is what they said. I believe, no, I'm 38 years old, everybody. I'm 38 years old, but it's all right. Yeah, it's just a number. It's just a number.
Birthday.
Thank you for that. It was a fun day. Beat my wife in miniature golf tonight. Got a little rematch from one of our first dates that we had a long time ago. So that was good.
I knew you had to do something competitive.
Right? Yeah, I just told her I needed something nice and easy today. It's going to be good. But we also celebrated. We celebrated over the weekend in Boulder. I'll get to that later in the podcast and tell you a little bit about my time in Boulder. So the big news, though, Jay, is the CFP rankings. First of all, the thing that caught my eye was Ohio State is still number one after a struggle versus Rutgers. And Georgia, they beat a quality opponent in Missouri. And I thought, it was close first for them, but Georgia and Missouri. But I thought they handled their own towards the end there. And I felt like, 30-21 versus 35-16 against Rutgers. I want to say they were losing. They were losing 9-7. Ohio State.
Yeah.
Ohio State was losing 9-7 to Rutgers at half. So, yeah, that's the biggest thing that kind of caught my eye. There were some others that we can get into. But right off the bat, 1-2. You agree with Ohio State still being number one?
If you're looking from a week-to-week performance, you'd have to give it to Georgia. I think quality of the opponent was tougher. A little more adversity. Yeah, you were at home, right? But you don't have your leading receiver. I think Carson Beck looked really good. I think it comes down to Missouri probably just not being as respected as they should be. But they're a really good SEC team. Whether they're 7-2 or 8-2, that was their second loss on the year.
Yeah.
And that kid and that team can put the ball around.
Yeah.
Ohio State, same thing. It's been, we'll see. Even with Penn State to some point, they have been pretty slow out the gates until the end of the mid-third quarter, fourth quarter. And they start to put it on. And I don't know if that's just they're wearing opponents down, just opening up at the end. But they can't do that coming up in a couple weeks. I don't agree. I thought Georgia should have flip-flopped there. And I think it would have been made for a more compelling matchup with Ole Miss. But I think if Georgia beats Ole Miss next week, then it's a moot point.
I was just going to go back real quick. It's like that debate that I think we're always going to have is what are we really judging? You saw Ohio State early on with those two wins, probably the best wins, which was Notre Dame and Penn State. Sure, it was sluggish against Penn State, but I think people realize how good Penn State's defense actually is. They are head and shoulders. It's just them and Michigan that are 1 and 2 in every single category, pretty much. So,
right.
To me, they still have the best wins at Notre Dame and at home against Penn State. But I will say that with Georgia now about to play Ole Miss and then beating Missouri, who was ranked, I believe, at the time 12th. Those are great quality wins. So the other one that caught my eye, Ole Miss and Penn State. I'm just going to go ahead and just do this real side-by-side comparison. Ole Miss, if you look at their schedule, they beat LSU. Great. It's a 3-loss team. Their only other ranked game that they won is against Tulane. And if you're now looking at Penn State, the committee put Iowa in there, and they handled Iowa at home. I get it. It's Iowa. Their losses against, obviously Ohio State, but they played a 5-3 team in Maryland on the road and kicked their ass 51-15, and Ole Miss struggled against A&M, another 5-3 team. I think I would have flip-flopped them. Ole Miss is the best team that they played is Bama, right? So
Right.
Ohio State, Bama. Ohio State's technically number 1 in the country, and Penn State played them and had them, within 6 points late in the game. So I would have had Penn State over Ole Miss in that one.
I mean, yeah, they're almost like A-B in my opinion. I view the Ole Miss win a pretty good win against A&M. I think A&M's a good team, not a great team. It's a tough out, but it's hard to think.
They're 5.
They're 5-4. Yeah. Speaking of next dude out, Jimbo. We'll see about that. But it's hard to not think that the committee wanted a top 10 matchup with Georgia, right? Ratings boost. Could be an argument there to be made.
Okay, and then next, man, is the Big 12. My God, I still don't get it. I think you're on the bandwagon, which is totally fine. It makes some sense there. But when you look at it, they have OU still in the top 17, right? Still in the top 17 after 2 back-to-back losses. State moved up 7 spots after a 3-point win. Sure, it was against Oklahoma, but a 3-point win. Kansas moved up 5 spots after beating Iowa State only by a touchdown. And then Kansas State, they were 23 last week. I get it. You went into overtime against Texas, but they're keeping them in the top 25. That's a 3-loss team. And there's teams with 1 loss. There's Liberty, who's undefeated, not in it. I remember what we said last time, how all this shit at the back end, it matters because they all get to say, check mark, we beat them while they were ranked. And Kansas State might end up with 5 losses at the end of the year or 4 losses and not even ranked, but it's going to be a check mark on someone else's record when they say, oh, we beat Kansas State, like Texas, when they were ranked 22nd in the country.
They're trying to make something go on right now. I think it's gridlock, similar to the Pac-12. You got Oklahoma State. All of a sudden, mind you, got beat by 30 at home to South Alabama. Is sitting in second place in the Big 12. They are playing much better. If I found an equivalent of them, they are the Arizona of the Big 12. They're hot. You don't want to play them right now. But I don't get it. I mean, it seems like it's like kind of what have you done for me lately? That's always been the media and the rankings. And it just might be one of those where the schedules align, right? So like you lose to a team that was really highly ranked, so you don't get as penalized, and you go ahead and beat a team that was ranked 20th, so you move back into the rankings, or you kind of fluctuate. It's like the old saying, and like I don't know, when you play fantasy football, right? You just get everyone's best shots that week, or even though you're doing really well, but you don't really get penalized. But
anyway, hot route, real quick, hot route. I think you're just saying that because you beat my ass in fantasy this week.
I did not insert that on purpose. Anyways,
Jesus, if you're listening, I lost by like 40 points. Whatever.
And my team's stacked. I don't know, man. I don't think anyone saw the Big 12 playing out like this, especially after that really good Red River rivalry game. But here we are.
Yeah, I'm gonna just throw one thing out there. Fresno State is 8-1, and they went on the road to beat Purdue and on the road to beat Arizona State. They essentially did what the committee asked the group of 5 teams to go and do. Tulane lost against the team that they played at home, which was Ole Miss. That's it. There are other wins. If you look at Tulane's wins, it's nothing impressive. And then I would make the argument that Kansas State, who's 25th and has 3 losses, again, we're rewarding them for their losses against a ranked Missouri, a ranked Oklahoma State, which, by the way, those 2 teams were not ranked when they lost to them. And then they lose to Texas in overtime. Their wins, Kansas State, Southeast Missouri, Troy, UCF, Texas Tech, TCU, and Houston. Not one of them has sniffed the top 25. yet they're still in the top 25. And Fresno State's sitting there. That's crazy to me, but we'll move on. Your boy, Alex Grinch, you
Yeah.
called it. I think it was already 2 weeks ago. What's going to happen to USC? I'm going to let you take this one, but I personally, I don't think it's completely on him. I'll let you start. But yeah, I think it was time. I think they had to make the change. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they had to. I mean, what were they averaging? They were giving up like 30, 40 points a game. And you kind of saw, I mean, obviously, you know, clips, when you see little media clips, they can be totally taken out of context. But there was a point in the game
Mm-hmm.
last week where he tries to, they're in the middle of the chaos, trying to, coming out of the timeout. He's breaking the huddle. The players are just completely checked out. That's not just the DC.
Yeah.
That's just overall top leadership right there, coming with the head coach. So clearly there's been something that, we really haven't seen that's going on in between the team rooms in there. The guy's a good coach. He'll land on his feet somewhere. He's obviously followed. He's been well respected in the lead, but the players that they're recruiting, man, I don't know. They're just not tackling. You don't scheme or scheme not. You don't just give up 40 plus points a game when you don't get a rush, when you don't get turnovers,
It's
when
true.
you don't get sacks, when you don't tackle. And at various points in every game, they're not doing any of that. And so if I was Caleb, I'm more frustrated on that. I'm frustrated at my team. Like, why can't we just get a stop here or there? It must be exhausting knowing that your team will put up 40 plus points a game, but you have a 50-50 shot of losing. Where do they go from here? I don't know. Big name or not, they got to do a wholesale change, because I would think that if they put up another stinker of a defense, early next year, now all of a sudden you're starting to look at Lincoln Riley. Is he the right guy for the job? Because it's not about his play calling anymore. It's about, can he lead a team like Pete Carroll did? Pete Carroll had Norm Chow. He's a defensive guru, but he had all these other dudes with him. Sarkisian, Kiffin. He knew how to get coaches. So then you start looking at Lincoln, and saying, can he get the right guys to go help this team win a championship? I think that's the big question mark too right now. So he got his 1 year, like I would say, scapegoat. And every coach gets that, right? They get a couple scapegoats. They could trash a couple coaches, not on purpose, but that's the head coach. You get to buy yourself time. Well, now the clock's ticking.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a mini rant.
Yeah, I like it. A little dorm room rant. I love it. You called it 2 weeks ago. Where do they go from here? Here's the thing that I immediately think of. They're missing out on the opportunity that they had with Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And is Alex Grinch at fault for that? Probably. The only stat that they're in the bottom 10 for is points per game, which is 34 and a half. They're 10th. But it's Lincoln Riley. If you're the man in charge, you have to be able to change your offensive philosophy just a little bit. You can't go out there and, when you have a lead, try to score again in 3 plays. Your defense is the worst part of your team. You need to limit the amount of times that they're out there.
Yeah.
It's plain and simple, dude. The guys who can't tackle, like you're saying, stay on the bench. The guys who can't wrap up, you guys can't take angles, the guys who can't get off the field on 3rd down, stay on the bench. The way they do that, get a better running game. Don't run hurry up. Don't try freaking score on 3 plays or less when you're already up 14 or 10 points. Learn how to win the game by 10, not by 35. And I guess it's that dilemma. Do you try to win Caleb Williams the Heisman, get, pad his stats, all those things to be able to go win a second Heisman? I get it. But right now you're sitting with 3 losses. You're out of the top 25. He's not getting the Heisman. And the only thing you can play for is second place in the Pac-12. And the game, your season's on the line this coming week against Oregon. But to me, I just don't think it's all on Alex Grinch. I think Lincoln Riley needs to look at himself and his offensive philosophy and say, hey, we need to change things up.
Yeah, I think 2 good points you said. This game for Oregon's actually huge, right? It kind of sets a tone, not for this year, for the future. Okay, how does the defense respond with whoever's their makeshift DC? And then how do they stack up against Oregon in general for recruiting? You go out and get your ass kicked, and you're going to the Big Ten next year.
Oh, yeah.
Like, all of a sudden, Oregon's going to start winning these recruiting
That's a
battles.
great
They're going to
point.
want to play for Lemming. So I think there's a few things they got to figure out. Obviously, they made the right move, but there's a lot of things they got to get right quick if they want to get back on the recruiting trail and build the defense they want.
No, I agree. That's a really good point. It is a huge game, and it's going to be scary to see where they go from here. I think Caleb Williams is gone. Malachi Nelson's the next guy in terms of quarterbacks that they have in line as a top recruit.
Yeah.
But, man, if you don't shore up that defense, if you don't get a big name in there to be able to run that defense, recruit some guys, and more importantly, I think you need to tweak the way you try to win games. Let's move on. Let's move on to the latest on your boys in Michigan with the newest allegations that they're coming up with. So what we read, just so that everybody knows, is Michigan is accusing Rutgers, Ohio State, and Purdue that they all shared film or tape of signals that they stole and that they filmed with each other back in 2022 last year. This is Michigan saying that. There's no confirmation that the Big Ten has all this information, but this is Michigan saying that. They're letting the Big Ten know, and I think they're just trying to soften the blow.
Here's the funny part. It's like almost like Michigan's playing the role of like Jeffrey Epstein over here, just blackmailing everyone. Like they have blackmail on every single team. They're like, oh, if you really want to make this thing, so then it's less about Michigan, it's about the Big Ten, like just not being able to manage their teams or the NCAA. It's like, how big will this get? But I think this is these are just the age-old games that all college has done. I'll leave it at this. It's all gonna flesh it out. I think the media just wants something big to happen. I still think Michigan is a top 5 team, regardless if they're cheating with the signs or not. And Ohio State's getting signs, and whoever's getting signs. One of my old teammates at Stanford became a coach, and they'd go recruit down the South. Unless, again, this happens everywhere. It's not about signs, but like just the shady shit that goes on in recruiting. And everyone knows everyone's business. But it's awesome. Like, you better look the other way.
It's fucking awesome.
You call my shit out, I for sure will come back and get you. And so this is like, it's almost like Michigan's doing the same thing here. It's like, all right, you guys called us. We're gonna come dig up dirt because everyone's got dirt on each other. So it really just becomes this giant black eye, I think, for the conference and the league in general.
My worry is that the NCAA, who we know handles things pretty poorly, it already looks like they have something out for Jim Harbaugh with the whole recruiting, right. Him sitting out 3 games over a cheeseburger. So like this, we know is a little bit more serious than that. Now, mainly this game that's going to happen between Michigan and Ohio State, it's all anyone's going to talk about. And they should be talking about it's 1 versus number 2, pretty much. And it's the game. And it's a preview of what the national championship could be again.
We talked about this last week, the fuzziness of the blurred lines and the rules. And I think that's why the NCAA is annoyed with Jim. I mean, it all started when he first got in. He was holding football camps in right across the street from Alabama. David, you remember that? So like
he was he called them the Michigan satellite camps.
Yeah, he was pushing these boundaries, right? So he just continues to push the buttons. You poke the bear one too many times, I think it's going to bite. We'll see how big the bite is.
Very good. All right. Another thing to deal with the NCAA, James Madison, baby. I talked about him last week. I thought it's a really big shame the fact that at the time they were 8-0. They're now 9-0 with their biggest win pretty much on the season for them. They're still not eligible, but what I didn't know was that they are making an appeal to the NCAA, that it's a plea to the NCAA. Like they've already had 1 year ban. Why need it for a second year? I agree with them, man. Also, these rules that took place was 23 years ago. I really hope the NCAA takes a look at this. The easiest games are coming up in front of them, so they're going to be 12-0 and sitting there, and that sucks, man. Because as we both talked about last week, we played in bowl games. We've been to you've been to a Rose Bowl. I've been to a Sugar Bowl, and I did it as a group of 5 guy. Like that's our dream, is to be able to say that we were there. And you're going to take that away from these kids.
Another good point too. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not. What I do know is there's 41 bowl games, right? So you got 82 teams that need to be bowl eligible. As of today, only 56 of them are or would be, something like that. Maybe it's 50 something. And then after that, they have to start going to the 5 and 7s. And they said if they went to every team that finishes out potentially at 5 and 7, they still want to have enough. Which is like there's a lot of issues with that, right? Like losing records, all that. And here you are, you're going to not let JMU to come and play. It's like, just get your heads out of your ass.
It's really fun for these kids to be able to go and get an extra game and play. I think it's very watered down now. I think it would be really cool for us to create our own bowl schedule. And it'd be really fun for us to like recreate some of these bowls and limit it like from 41 to just maybe only 24 bowls. And it's like, we can play commissioner for the NCAA bowl committee for a while. So that would be fun. The next thing let's get into here is we're going to look back at our conference championships predictions. It's week 11, man. And there's some of these things we're doing pretty good in. There's others that we're not. You can see on our notes here, Jay, I put the ones in red that I don't think have a chance. Let's start off in the ACC. I had North Carolina against Florida State. North Carolina is 3-2 in conference. They do not play Louisville, who is in second place. Louisville is 5-1. It looks like they should have an easy track through. They just play at Miami. The hard game for them really is at home against Kentucky, but it's not a conference game. So I think they're pretty much a close lock to getting into that second spot. We know Florida State is already in there. For you had Miami, and Mario Cristobal's are 2-3 inside the conference. Yeah.
I don't think anyone
hoping to see Miami. It's good. No, none of us did. None of us had Louisville. None of us had Braum in there. Good for him.
I mean, you might have.
Good for him.
Like, think about exactly. Like, if you're looking at what are they? Maybe 4th or 5th on the list to start the season. You definitely had Florida State, Clemson ahead of them. North Carolina next, Miami, and then maybe Duke. So they might have been 6. Yeah. That's give that guy an extension.
It's a really give him an extension after his first year. He also won. He was in a Big Ten championship game not too long ago with Purdue. Okay, moving on. Let's see here. What do I got next? The Big Ten. All right. So I have Iowa. The committee's ranked them. Thanks so much, CFP. I don't necessarily agree with you, but I have them. That's totally fine. And I have them playing Penn State. Obviously, that's all dependent on this game coming up here. There you go. We are. They're going against Michigan. They're at home. It sucks that it's a 12 p.m. local kickoff. I don't think it, bears well for them.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan's the better team, but Penn State, technically, I'm still available. Iowa's in the lead, so Iowa right now 4-2 within the conference. You had Wisconsin.
So I think it'd be fun. Nebraska dropped the game against Michigan State, but that should be an interesting one because they got Rutgers next, Illinois, and they finish the season at Nebraska, who's right behind Iowa. That'd be a hell of a turnaround story. I mean, again, it's a terrible record, but if Matt Rule can get his team into the Big Ten championship first year, they're going to be stoked over there.
No, they would be stoked. They'll be stoked at 5 or 6-4. 6-4, they'd be stoked. Yeah, we missed that. I'm still available, but you have Wisconsin and Michigan. Yeah, I think you're fine with Michigan, right?
I don't know. I had Michigan, but I'm looking at the West right now. Again, you said Iowa at 4-2, then you got 3 teams right behind it, all 3-3. I don't know the tiebreaker scenarios. It's Nebraska, Minnesota, and Wisconsin.
So it's a weird one in the West. Nobody's super proud to say they should represent the West, but whatever. We're still both alive in that instance. I might not be after this weekend with Penn State if they lose to Michigan, which, by the way, I don't even get to watch. It's 2 weeks. The two big games I don't even get to watch. I'm coaching my nephew again in a flag football game because his father is out at that TCU Dad's weekend. And then I just found out the game is at 9 a.m., which is the same exact time as Penn State, Michigan. And if they win, they play in the championship game right after. So I don't even get to see the second half. Whatever. It's great. I love you, Carter. You're the best.
Come on, Jason. What are you doing? I hope you enjoy that weekend.
Okay, next for us is, I believe it's the Big 12. Big 12, Texas and KU, Texas and OU. I had Texas, KU. You have Oklahoma. It's looking like we're both alive in that, right?
Yeah, I'd say more you than OU right now. But
yeah. That's more me with Kansas.
Rematch against Texas,
Yeah,
which would be fun.
Oklahoma,
I would prefer that over Oklahoma State playing Texas.
Okay. I can see that. The rematch is there. But if you look at Oklahoma State, they play Central Florida, Houston, and BYU. If they can't win those
then it's
three,
not happening.
Sure. Yeah, then it's not happening. So, sure, it looks like it's going to be Oklahoma State, but there's still 3 weeks left. So we're technically not out of it. We're not eliminated in that one. So the Big 12 is what we're the best in right now because we have all 4 teams available. And then the SEC, we're both kind of – I'm hanging on with Bama. I had Kentucky. They're not in it. You're LSU. That was it for them, man. That was it. But you got Georgia.
That was it.
So, I mean, that was it. LSU – you knew it. It was going to come down to this week, and you were banking on it, which is totally fun. It's fine. And they couldn't really hang in there. It was close to the first half. It was tied.
Yeah, it was tied. It was a tough game. I mean, they lost, was it 42-28, Alabama. But I think, was it late third quarter, Jalen Daniels got blasted. I think it's become a recurring weekly occurrence with him. He's taking shots. But, once they took him out of the game, it was good night for LSU. So, I mean, fun offense to watch. The dude's putting up historic numbers. We'll get into that in a second. But I did not get that one. It was a bold bet earlier this year. Come on, Brian Kelly.
The Pac-12?
Yep.
It was a sexy pick. Look, man, it was a sexy pick for you right when you said it, Washington State. But it went downhill fast.
Oh, they went south quick. They have not won since I made that pick. It's not me. They've just not looked good. I think they're 4-5 now, maybe 5-5, something like that. It's crazy. You always see this every year. There's always one team, right? That's like, came out of the woodworks, had some good wins, and all of a sudden just drop 4 or 5 straight, right? They just, as soon as they get their team, the coach on a pedestal, someone's playing great, everything just goes south quickly, and they cannot figure it out. Washington State's that team this year. It's shitty, but it happened.
I'm there with USC. I think this weekend is huge against Oregon for many, many reasons. But if you're trying to save your season at all, at Oregon, you pull off that win, you're in the driver's seat to be in the Pac-12 championship game and face Washington again. Obviously, the Heisman's done for Caleb Williams. But I would say that seeing USC possibly win a Pac-12 championship. So, just to recap, USC, big game against Oregon on the road. They win. They still have a chance to be able to play in the Pac-12 championship game. Nothing for Caleb Williams in terms of the Heisman. Obviously, no national championship on the right. That stuff is done, but they still have a chance. I had SC versus UW, so I'm still there. Jason, obviously, with Washington State against SC, it's not looking too good. So, especially if Oregon wins this weekend. But that means we're going to move on to the Heisman. Obviously, Williams, you saw him crying, right? It's kind of ironic. I don't know if you saw Forcier, but he was crying. He was laughing at Max Duggan at Max Duggan when he was crying. And then, Max Duggan, I think, sent the same thing back to him. He sent an LOL. So that's always fun, the Twitter wars, right? It's pretty good. It's pretty good. But I do want to say it's like it means a lot to these guys. And you can see that raw emotion. They pour everything they got into this. And when they know it's gone, then you kind of see all that emotion play out there. And that's what's kind of cool about college sports. Yeah, I don't think you ever really get to see that in the NFL. But we are in our segment for Hello Heisman. There was a lot this weekend, especially Penix versus Caleb Williams. I still have Michael Penix as my number one. Bo Nix, to be honest, I mean, they should share the spotlight in terms of me of 1-2 or even like a shared number one. Bo Nix had 6 total TDs. He is my stud of the week, by the way. You'll see that in the graphics. And then a new name for me, Ollie Gordon, the running back for Oklahoma State, the team I don't think should be in the top 25, but I do like the running back. He leads the country in rushing yards, and I want to say he's top 5 in touchdowns. Jaden Daniels is my number 4. I know you love him. I see where you have him, so I'll let you go with Jaden Daniels. Before that, McCarthy and Marvin Harrison Jr. are my honorable mentions. But go ahead.
I think it's being unfairly punished for a historically bad defensive season at LSU. I mean, obviously the talk heading into the Bama game was this dude is putting up the same exact stats as Joe Burrow. And obviously Joe Burrow ran away with it. And of course they went undefeated and killed everyone. So there's context right there, right? I look at it like over Penix for me was he's just been consistent every game, regardless if they got their butts kicked or not. And where Penix obviously struggled in those couple games, right, where they didn't win, but he's shown up. Penix is elite as well. But it's funny because like I have right behind him I have Bo Nix, and if I had to use a tiebreaker now, then I'm thinking about this. I just looked at Bo Nix's stats. They're the exact same. They're slightly better, I think, actually, than Jaden Daniels. And so if he puts on a clinic against USC, and then obviously he wins it. Obviously, then there's a tiebreaker, right? You got the team, you got the championship, all that. So it's 1A, 2B, 1A, 1B for me. And then I have McCarthy. Well, I don't get it. I love him. He's a good quarterback. He's great. He hasn't had to do a ton. He will have to next week and in 2 weeks. But he shouldn't be at the top. Like, it shouldn't be his to lose just because Michigan is undefeated. And that's what's the flaw part of the system right now. I see a lot of people saying he is, it's his to win, or maybe Penix. That's not even debatable in my opinion.
I just to clear this up though, Jaden Daniels, I agree. It stinks. It's not his fault how bad his defense is, and he is the best example that if he were to be gone, I think their team is done. Like they might win 3 games if his team if he's not even playing for him, right? If McCarthy's gone, Michigan still probably is undefeated. But in terms of stat leaders, Jaden Daniels is still 500 yards less than Michael Penix Jr. Michael Penix only has 1 less touchdown than Jaden Daniels. However, when you go to Jaden Daniels rushing, Jaden Daniels puts up some rushing touchdowns this year.
Yeah. Bo Nix, he had over 500 yards rushing, 14 touchdowns last year running. This year, only 100 plus and 5 touchdowns. So, like, obviously, better running backs. I think that, the better complete teams not having to do everything. Be interesting to see, like, do those stats change as we get closer to the end of the year, where he's going to have to put the ball in his hands a lot more to get these wins. But I thought that was interesting. And then the last thing was, I didn't know Jaden Daniels was a San Bernardino kid. Something's up in that Inland Empire water over there. CJ Stroud tearing it up last week, and they're going to put another top 5 pick in the draft soon. So someone's coaching up those kids and breeding them right, but pretty cool to see.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Just the last thing, a great point for you in terms of how his rushing numbers have gone down for Bo Nix from last year to this year. However, he does lead the country now in completion percentage. Second year under Lanning as well. All right, so moving on here.
Got the big games this weekend.
We got the big games this weekend, right? The big games this weekend. Penn State, Michigan. I think it's going to be really hard for Penn State to pull off. I think they were more equipped, I mentioned this last time, to be able to compete against Ohio State than they are Michigan. The over-under is 45.5. I think it's going to be right underneath that. I think if Penn State wins, it needs to be underneath that. Penn State looked really good last week. Drew Aller throwing 4+ touchdowns, had 200-something plus yards through the air. They opened it up. They got more receivers involved. I personally think they don't win that way. But obviously they're going to have to take their shots. I think it's more on Nick Singleton, the 5-star sophomore now, who had over 1,200 yards rushing last year as a freshman, over, I think, 12 touchdowns on the ground last year as a freshman. He has, I think, 9 as of right now, but his yards aren't there. He's only averaging like 2.5 to 3 yards a carry. And so a lot of his touchdowns are garbage goal line touchdowns out of that, that wing T. So Nick Singleton for me is somebody who has to show up, not just Drew Aller, but Nick Singleton for me. And I'm okay with them winning like 17-14 or 21-17. That's the only way I see it happening. And unfortunately, that would be another year if they lose with 2 losses to Ohio State and Michigan and still playing in a New Year's 6. So I guess I should be happy. But they'll probably extend James Franklin to another 10 years. So
it'd be interesting to see how aggressive he is to start the game. I think that's the key. I mean, you look at like last year where Michigan got in trouble was in that bowl game, right? TCU just got off to a quick start. I don't know. They haven't been pressured. They haven't been, put through the pressure cooker this year. And
they haven't been tested. Right. They have not been tested.
Not the best time of day for a Penn State game, but still, like, if they can get a fast start, keep the game tight, and squeeze them to the end, I think that's Penn State's best shot. The Wolverines they have outscored all opponents this year in the third quarter, 76-0. So again, got to have a strong third quarter. James, what do you got out of the bag?
A fun one is Miami, Florida State. And, it's a rivalry game. It's something that we've always grew up loving to watch. We have all these big NFL names and guys that went along and whatnot. But Miami has 3 losses, but this is the only team that, in my opinion, can knock off Florida State from possibly – because I've seen Florida. Florida ain't going to do it. Florida's not going to do it. Florida was just at home and lost to Arkansas. Are you shitting me? Like, fucking KJ Jefferson's getting the ball on every single play, and they still put
a baller.
39 points. He is, but it's 39 points. Dude, they have nothing else in Arkansas. It's QB draw left, QB draw right, QB draw down the middle. Just put 9 in the box. Make his ass throw. Yeah. So I think Miami's the only team that can actually threaten Florida State. Jordan Travis is a name we didn't mention in the Hello Heisman. I think for good reason. Like you said, he's won games, but he hasn't flashed anything. Nothing's actually flashed for us, so I understand that. But I think Florida State can handle him pretty easily. But because it's a rivalry game, who knows? Keeping my fingers crossed. I think it's great that Florida State's relevant. I just don't think that I'd rather see someone else in the playoff this year. Your thoughts?
Same thing. I want to see them show up in the playoffs. Last time they got in the playoffs, they embarrassed themselves against Oregon, Jimbo Fisher. So I think it'd be a breath of fresh air. But again, you can't sleep on that Miami team. I just think they got the athletes. This is kind of their bowl game, right? Their state game, so to speak. So they get some bragging rights. But I do like Florida State. Too much talent.
All right. Before we end the show, I just want to mention that my trip to Boulder this past weekend was amazing. It's one of those unique stadiums, Jason, like in college football, where it only holds like 50-something thousand people. and there's still so much of the original bowl that's there. I got lucky. I got some sideline passes hooked up, and it was hilarious because we went through the tunnel. So you're right there by the locker room, and you can see all of what Deion's handprint has been on now. He has, you look good, you feel good, you play good, and if you play good, they pay good, right? And that's the last thing that the guys see before they run out to the tunnel. I saw the Rashaan Salam Heisman Trophy, and the tailgating's on campus, and because of all the frats and sororities and the off-campus housing that's right next to the stadium and to the campus, everybody's partying in their front yards, which is cool. It reminded me a lot of Wisconsin, because like in Wisconsin, all the frat and sororities are right along that side, outside of Camp Randall. We were out, we were playing. It was hilarious. I mean, to kind of show you my age, I'm 38 years old. The rules of beer pong have changed, apparently. And there's just, they call things totally different. It's just these kids these days, they make up all these games. It was hilarious. But all in all, Boulder was a great time. I think it's comparable to where we were when we went to go to Oxford. It really is. I still think Oxford has the leg up, but it's comparable, and it's awesome. Plus, we got to see Ralphie run on the field.
How was the sentiment with the fan base? Obviously, like you went there, the early season hype worn off, right? So now it's about the future, and then they lost. Like, is the excitement still there? Is the energy still there at the stadium?
It's 100% still there. Everybody talks highly of Deion. I think it was so bad for like the last 3 or 4 years that even though they're only probably going to finish with 4 wins, like we kind of predicted at the beginning of the season, they don't care. They can see what it's done for the town. They can see what it's done for the campus, for the student body. Everybody's talking about him. You go to the bookstore, there's more shit that says Prime on it than anything I've ever. Like, I was trying to find a hat that didn't say Prime on the side, and I just said, screw it, I'm going to get it because it's a sick hat. But I didn't want it to say Prime on the side, but it does. But yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to that to Boulder. They hosted us. It was great. It was a fun time. Seeing Ralphie run was great. My wife saw Master P on the sideline. She took a picture with Master P. Real quick. Yeah. It was great. We got to stay on the sideline for the whole first half, and then we went to our seats and enjoyed the rest of the game, man.
Nice. Well, it looks like we'll have to put it on the calendar next year.
That's going to do it for this episode of QB Room. If you can, give us a follow on Instagram, QB Room Podcast. We also are now going to be putting stuff on Facebook as well, so be on the lookout for that. And then, of course, Spotify, if you can, subscribe. That would be great. QB Room Podcast on Spotify. Till next time, I'm Jake. He's Jason. Peace.